the question that I had for you, which I'm calling it's like a meta question. So you've run kitchens before. You've had these young, ambitious chefs apply and interview to work with you. And as I shared with you, like that's a lot of the audience that's listening to the show. When you ask them interview questions, if you're not looking for I played the victim, XYZ types of things, and feel free to use examples that come to mind, what do you look for in the answers that these people are giving? Or maybe some example questions too.
Yeah, I mean, I was the chef de cuisine for the restaurant group that I had, L'Artusi, Dell'Anima, L'Apicio, and Amphora, which was great to get fired from Dell'Anima and come back. So I ran their entire commissary kitchen, did all their prep. We had a big 5,000 square foot kitchen in Long Island City. And at the time, I think I had 70 cooks in the commissary. So it was a big operation.
Wow.
My wife at the time was allergic to the allium family, onion, garlic, shallot, sweets. So we were at Five Guys one night getting a burger, which was like, we would sometimes we would go to Five Guys like to celebrate, like when we bought our apartment and stuff like that, for whatever reason. It's like a goofy thing. And I forget exactly what happened, but there was like an issue with her burger. And I went up to the woman at the counter and she was just like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we'll make you another one. And there's this like young cook behind the counter who like kind of came out and around it and kind of realized like the translator was useless. And he was like, hey, sorry, what happened? And we're like, and he's like, oh, okay, onions, got it. I'm going to clean the whole thing. They like brought it out and he like set it down in front of my wife. And I said, do you want a real fucking job in a real fucking kitchen? He's like, yes. And I hired that kid out of Five Guys for that.
For anybody who hasn't been to Five Guys, that doesn't happen at Five Guys.
Yeah, I was so impressed. I was like, that was great, right? And I hired that kid. His name was Mark. He did all right. He did well. We ended up sending him from the commissary to one of the restaurants, and I don't know how long he left there, but I think working at a restaurant in Manhattan, I think he had issues taking the shit you gotta take, right? I think because I remember he wanted to come back to the commissary, and I told him no, like you don't get to move back home, man.
Right.
Like figure it out. You know, like I was hoping he's gonna be like, you know what, and God, it would be interesting to find out where he's at now. But I remember like I created kind of like a womb-like environment for him there because I really wanted him to be successful. And then I think we sent him to L'Apicio, and the chef at L'Apicio was tough. Like her and I, we weren't hanging out. Like right. we were like, well, And I think maybe because he was like kind of my guy, he got drummed out of there.
I see.
But like, how impressive would it have been if I was like, now he's the chef of it slipped from his little fingers. But the biggest thing I always looked for was like enthusiasm. That's what I cared about. Like, I trained probably a dozen African dishwashers from Senegal to go from dishwashers to prep cooks, and one, Chia, ended up working the line at, I think, L'Artusi, and then later went on to other restaurants. But like, that was just because those guys are just standing around washing pots. Like, what are you doing over there? Like, I'll show you to butcher chickens. Like, you want to learn to butcher chickens? You want to make ravioli fillings? You want to work with pasta crust? And so we actually ended up building kind of a culinary school in there where they would like make stocks, and then like eventually these cooks would be at the restaurant. They'd be like, oh, I have familiarity with that. I used to make that pasta. I used to sheet that out. I made the stock for that. And they actually made really good line cooks. And that was something I was really proud of. But it was all about enthusiasm for me. If somebody was really enthusiastic, you could work with that. I never really, not to say there's not space for people that just want a paycheck, but like one of the things, I think as long as there's been restaurants, there's been push-pull between front of house and back of house. But a good restaurant, the type of restaurant I always wanted to work at, you could go to anybody in the back of the house and say, like, what do you do? And they'd say, chef. And the issue that we had at, like, maybe the sub-Michelin or the Michelin recommended or the one Michelin-star restaurant that gets cleared up at the 2 and 3 star joints is if you were to ask some of the front of house, what do they do? Most of them don't say I'm a server or a bartender. They say I'm an actor, I'm a musician. You know, and it's like, well, act like you give a fuck about this job, you know? But that's, you know, but that's what we're talking about, right? We're talking about, like, enthusiasm. We're talking about care. We're talking about professionalism. And I think when you meet somebody and they are aspiring to do something that's further down the road than they are, like, that's kind of where, like, lightning strikes. And, like, you know, I'm really proud. I've made a few really good chefs in my day, and I'm really proud of that. I love those guys, you know? And, you know, if it wasn't for COVID, they'd be doing a lot more than they're doing now. But enthusiasm. Just be super enthusiastic. And, like, even now, you know, I'm relentless with, like, dad jokes. You know, like, I'm so relentless. I'm so enthusiastic about everything. I train a lot. I work hard. And I'm really excited when I meet, like, a young cook or anybody who just is there to get after it, you know, and just really understands that, like, you're only going to have, like, you have, let's see, 250 work nights a year. You probably have 200 really bad nights in your career. You know what I mean? There's probably...
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You do the math. If you're in a restaurant for 20 years, you probably have 200 awful nights. You know, like...
Yep.
Probably like 15 a year.
Sure.
That are just like, fuck do I do this for? Like, Jesus Christ. Like, everybody's flipping on banana peels. The fuck? You know, like, just... And, like, the people that are like, I just want to get those out. Like, let's just get after it. Let's see, it's tonight or night, you know? Like, where just the kitchen goes down. And if you can just understand that, just, like, you want to experience it all. Like, the good, the bad, and just to not, you know, when I was at Public one day, we were making stock, and it boiled over, and the whole pot caught on fire, right? Like, the whole, like, raging. And the sous chef, his name was Sun, is this Chinese kid from Baltimore. It was very, like, he looked really Chinese, and he had, like, a Baltimore accent. But he was awesome. He was dope. I loved him. And he's like, come on, bro, come on. We got to get this down so the Ansel system doesn't go off. And we, like, pulled it off and set it on the floor. And, I mean, this thing was, like, a blowtorch. And then, like, and then he was, like, all amped. You know, he's, like, all, and then he was just like, man. And then, like, he came up to me later, and he was like, God, that was a pretty bad kitchen fire, huh? I was like, yeah, I don't know. He's like, I was like, I got to keep my cool so this kid doesn't see me freak out. And I remember thinking, like, ooh, all right, cool, good. Like,
yeah.
I'm glad he broke the third wall for that, you know, or fourth wall.
Sure.
But it's like, just be enthusiastic, have fun, and just be there for everything. And don't, like, cut people slack. Like, you make mistakes, they're going to make mistakes. And, like, your job is to, like, make a really delicious tuna tartare. And at one point, 6 are going to go out for an event, and the sous chef's going to take a bite, and he's going to be like, there's not a fucking grain of salt anywhere near that. And you're going to be like, his job is to manage. And there's going to be times he's going to fuck up just like you didn't put capers in that, and he's going to treat you a little unfairly. If you don't want to be fired the first time you forget to fucking use a brioche bun instead of an oatmeal bun, you can't freak out and go to HR and try and get this dude fired the first time he calls you a fucking moron. You know, like, there needs to be an understanding that, like, I mean, as an almost 40-year-old man, I look back at sous chefs and I see children. Because I'm old. And, like, I remember looking up at sous chefs and seeing, like, wise men. You know,
right.
But that's just the progress, right? Like, this guy managing you, who, like, you look at as, like, this terror who's ruining your life as a child. Now, there is still one sous chef who tortured me, who I still do actually literally want to fight. And I've tried to set traps. I invested in a restaurant in San Francisco, and I tell Chris Blydorn, who I was his commis at Alinea, I'm like, I will come and do a tasting menu, but I also want you to invite this unnamed person, and we will do the tasting menu. And after the last service, I'm going to fight him. So far, we are yet to, but I will do it. I will stream it live on Facebook. Guy Fieri can monetize it, and we'll give all the money to the food service industry. It will be for a good cause. But having said that, you know, cutting people who are abusive to you some slack. Now, like, obviously I'm joking and I'm trying to add levity to it, you know? Sure. But, like, that kind of sounds preposterous for me to say I want to beat somebody up who was mean to me 13 years ago, right?
Right.
Yeah, but I still kind of do. But I know that, like, my life would be better if I was like, he was a child.
Yeah.
It's a coked up child who had his own insecurities. You know, but like, that's my advice to people is, like, be enthusiastic. Work really hard, and understand that, like, you're going to fuck things up, and so are your manners. And everything can't be the end of the world. And, like, the more unshakable and steady you can be, the more impressive that is to management. Because they're like, I can give this guy responsibility, right? Like, this guy's not a fucking crybaby. He's not somebody that I need to really be. Like, he's not, you know, like, the first time, like, a chef or a sous chef, like, makes, like, kind of an inappropriate joke in your station, you kind of feel like, oh, cool, this guy trusts me, right? Like, it's like, oh, nice, like, we're becoming friends, you know? And it's like, I also think that, like, people, certainly when I was working a hot station, it was hard, and the stakes were high. And if somebody fucked up, it set the entire kitchen back. People had to refire stuff. So, like, a lot of that is going to be frustrating. A lot of it is going to be, I want my eggs over medium. Oh, fucking medium. Fucking pain in the ass on table 62. You know, there's going to be shit that's just going to suck. Like, can you do an egg white omelet? Well, it's not on the menu. Well, you should do it. Yeah. It's like, so there's going to be these frustrations. And a lot of the hazing, a lot of the bullying, is because you don't want to let somebody mentally weak into that brigade who's going to fold like laundry when the pressure's on, right? Like, you can't have somebody just be like, this is too hard. Why are, like, what? I need to go talk to the manager. Why'd they sit all these tables at once? It's like, whoa, dude, fucking hold on. Take half your tickets and slide them over here. Do these. Like, you need to be able to fucking focus. Like, it's not about the manager. What do you mean? Like, that is not your concern. You are bottom of the food chain. That's not my concern. I'm a worker bee, baby. I'm a fucking worker bee. You know, but, like, you need to make sure that, like, people can handle a certain amount of stress, discomfort, frustration. Because, like, we've all seen people melt down on the line.
Totally.
Like, you know, all of a sudden it's Karen with a clipboard who's going to get the manager and pull the manager who's been managing restaurants for 30 years and tell them they can't sit the restaurant all at once. And she's going to be like, I didn't sit them all at once. Talk to your when your printer was up, you know, or whatever. It's like this whole emotional thing, and like part of like that's kind of was it good or bad? I don't know. I know that it toughened me up. It didn't kill me.
It's this element of the Nassim Taleb antifragility concept, right? Where it's like people that crumble, and then the people that beat those people, the crumblers, out are the people who can overcome that adversity. And then there's the anti-fragile people who, when you throw problems at them, they actually become stronger. Don't fuck with that person, you know, because they're gonna like, you don't have a chance. You don't stand a chance against the anti-fragile person. So it's like, how do you cultivate that in the context of working in a restaurant? Because if you can, I think you and I are both agreeing that it's just like, then your options are, you don't have to be scared about going from 2-star to 3-star or doing that first pop-up or whatever, because it's all these little elements kind of like tying in.
Yeah, and like, it's also, there's nothing wrong with failing. There's nothing wrong with, like, I mean, if you go sign up at a jiu-jitsu gym, like, you're not going to experience any success for 3 months. You can get smashed. Like, I had a wrestling background, so it was, like, a little less foreign to me. But, like, I still get smashed. You know, I train with Marcelo Garcia. I've trained with Marcelo Garcia hundreds of times, which means I've been smashed hundreds of times. Like, that guy, as much sparring as I've done, it's hopeless with him. It's just a matter of time. Like, it just might take him a little bit longer to strangle me. Like, it's hopeless. It's inevitable. It's doomed. And it's like, don't, like, you can't expect that, like Rome wasn't built in a day. You know, like, you have to just get after it and take the lessons that are in front of you and, like, not worry about it. Like, nobody ever really regrets, like, competing. Nobody ever really regrets doing a pop-up. Like, I mean, now, like, you know, you could have some shitty article written and not be able to get, like, you know, but, like, outside
that's always the first scene of the documentary on that chef. You know, you watch anything about Wiley Dufresne, like, they start the documentary with his negative articles that someone in New York wrote about his concept that he tried, you know? And it's just like, it's that much sweeter at the end, you know? Like,
like, my nephew now knows what, like, cauliflower, you know, he's seen some UFC fights, and he's like, oh, like, your ears, you know? And so he wanted to learn to wrestle because he finds, you know, like, that to be something of value that, you know, I think he thinks if his ears look like that, people won't pick fights with him, which I was like, dude, people still pick fights with me. Like, it's like, I people for sure are going to pick fights with you. So I took him to a wrestling class, and he came up to me, he's like, Uncle Stevie, I don't like wrestling. I was like, nobody likes it. It's fucking terrible. That's why we do it. Right? Like, no, like, that's nobody likes working in the kitchen. That's why we do it. We do it because we find peace and serenity in the chaos and the violence, right? Like, that's, like, there's something amazing. And then, like, you know, like, when I was there's a chef named Chris Lee. He's a very good friend of mine. He's like a little brother to me. And he and I lived together after culinary school. And it was after I was a sous chef at La Esquina, and it was right as I was, like, taking over a restaurant in Brooklyn. And I would have girls over that I met online or that I met in the restaurant, and I would cook them dinner. And I remember one time he was like, that's a real skill, to be able to, like, have a girl come over, whip up a dinner, and then, you know, like, hopefully, you know.
Sure.
You know, but I cooked dinner for so many girls that, like, just doing a dinner for somebody became like no big deal. You know, and I think, like, that any way you can get those, like in a gym, we call it, like, mat hours, like sparring, right? Any of those, because, like, there's a difference between, like, there's nothing wrong with picking herbs. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, you do what somebody will let you do. You know, do you want to do a lot at a good restaurant or very little at a great restaurant? You know, like, I mean, one night, like, I think the more you can, like, more extracurricular stuff where you can, like, cook someone dinner is great. And, like, now, like, cooking dinner for somebody is really, there's not one part of me that's concerned about, like, am I going to be able to put out a dinner? You know, and I think it's very fun. There comes a point where, you know, first comes accuracy and then speed, right? So, like, first you want to know how to do things right, and then you get fast to them. And I remember at Alinea, Grant leaning in, being like, if you ever want to work here, you need to learn to work really fucking fast. And I was like, yeah, chef. And he goes, no. Like, orders of magnitude beyond where you are now. And I was like, oh, whoa, I already thought I was fast. And he's like, you're not. You know, one night he came up to me and said, do you know how to cut hair, chef? I said, no, chef. And he said, you should learn. You should do anything but make people's food. You're truly awful at this. I was like, oh. I believe I cried in the downstairs bathroom and washed my face. And I came up, and I think it was Chris Blydorn. He was like, didn't know if I was going to see you back here. It's like, that was rough. You know, but, like, that was like, I was a child pursuing my dream. And he was like, you should learn to cut hair. You're truly awful at this. Don't, you should never make people do it. You know, but like, I think like, the more reps you can get in on something, the better. Like, cook people dinner. Like, cook your family dinner. Like, try, like, do as much of that shit as you can. And then you'll start to see, like, oh, fuck, like, I want to sous vide the ribeye ahead of time and just be picking it up. Like, I want my purees done. Like, I don't want to be pureeing shit between courses. Like, you'll start to learn this order of operations, and then and that's mirrored in your mise en place, right? You're not making purees during service. Or, I mean, if you are, things have gone horribly wrong, and Grant's going to tell you should look for a new job. That was like literally what was happening. I think I think I made if memory serves, I made the black truffle explosions wrong, and they all popped in the water.
Oh my god!
And he was furious.
Furious.
We were sheeting out pasta during service.